recall getting up around 9:45 in the morning. Shortly after getting up, I had the order of fried dough that one of Dad's co-workers got me last night at Salvatore's as a birthday gift. It tasted pretty good and was nice and chewy. And the coffee that I had with it was pretty good too. I had it both in the morning and in the early evening hours. Well, maybe early evening to early night hours. As I couldn't finish that last cup of the coffee I had in the morning. I had it plain as always, and when I went down to get another cup in the morning, Dad told me that apparently the coffee is, I recall he said that it's chocolate and cherry flavored. Or supposed to be flavored like that. Either way, it was pretty good coffee. Then again, I think at least for me, it's pretty hard to have a bad cup of coffee. Unless it has rinds. Just as you're about to finish it. But even then, it'll still generally be good. And that didn't happen for me both when I had the coffee in the morning and in the evening. Some of that last morning cup was carried over into the evening because I decided to go with Dad to Brody's at the Bay as he picked up his friend Bill to watch a football game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Washington Commanders. From what I recall, we watched the game roughly from 1 to 4 p.m. It was a pretty interesting game. The Vikings got a touchdown early in the first quarter. Then I think the rest of the first half was spent with the Vikings putting up a surprisingly good defense. As what I've usually heard from Dad about the Vikings is that they have a great offense, but a not so great defense. Though for much of that second half, both teams seem to have no offense. Which in a way made me nervous. Well, the people around us in that restaurant, paid attention to the game between the Bills and the Jets. We were focused on the Vikings Commanders game because the Vikings are my dad's favorite team, and thus I only vicariously support the Vikings because I know Dad wants them to win, so that they can make the playoffs and potentially win the Super Bowl. It is something they haven't done yet. Though I think I might support the San Francisco 49ers slightly more. If only because Colin Kaepernick used to be on that team, who stood up for both racial justice and tax-free driving. That, and I've heard good things about San Francisco, though I don't think I've ever been to the city myself. I generally don't have much interest in sports. Though I can certainly understand the appeal. The games are often pretty close, to the point where you can't really tell who's going to win it. Anything could happen. It's generally best to try and get as many touchdowns as you can early on so you can run up the score. When the Vikings failed to do that, after getting their first touchdown early on, I got nervous. I was right to be nervous. I think towards the very end of the second half, right before halftime. Sorry, I meant the second quarter. Right before halftime. the Commanders scored their first touchdown, and early on in the third quarter, they pulled in the lead. And the fourth quarter, it was spent with the Vikings struggling to get the lead back. To the point where, while watching the fourth quarter live, as I was finishing up my order of chicken wings that Dad got for me, for which I got the Carolina barbecue sauce, while Dad got the jerk sauce. He gave me one of his in exchange for one of mine. Both flavors were pretty good. To the point where they're kind of neck and neck, with maybe a razor thin margin in favor of Carolina barbecue. In my head, I heard Comfy in Natina by Panda Bear, which has come to represent hope to me. And it also gave me a feeling of hope regarding the upcoming midterms. Lately, I've been visiting the website 538. I may have said the wrong name for it the last time I mentioned it, but yeah, that's why at the time I said Nate Silver too. And this was in between sipping at water and some beer from a pitcher that I think Dad and his friend Bill split the cost of. I think they split the cost of everything, which included the previously mentioned 2 orders of chicken wings, I believe 10 each, my Carolina barbecue and Dad's jerk sauce, both flavors were sweet and savory, though I believe mine was more sweet, while Dad's was more savory. And a pepperoni and bacon pizza that we got earlier. I believe during the third quarter. The quarter in which I believe the Commanders were in the lead by 1 to 2 scores most of the time. One thing I've observed, some things I've observed when it comes to football, American football, penalties and injuries are kind of like wild cards. Or at least they feel like wild cards to me. They seem to happen at random and can drastically influence the outcome of the game. I got an impression that in the fourth quarter, the Vikings were saved by the refs. Noticing some penalties on the Commanders' part. I recall a couple of injuries on the Vikings side, but it didn't seem to influence the game too much. Either way, I recall at one point during the third quarter, the Commanders went for a fourth down conversion and failed. I think at some point during the second quarter, the quarterback threw an interception. Kirk Cousins. And there are three kinds of offensive plays: going through the defense, going around the defense, and going over the defense. And I think these are either my exact words or near my exact words to Dad. I recall in total having, at most, the equivalent of one glass of beer. The whole time we were at Brody's at the Bay. And afterwards, Dad made a sort of last minute decision, him and I, to go to Core Life Eatery because he had a coupon. Buy one bowl, get one free. What I was showing was the bowl I got. My usual Korean barbecue pork, only I replaced the purple rice with Napa cabbage, and they didn't have kimchi, so I had that replaced with beets. I took the time I was at Brody's at the Bay to upload to both make and then upload my 23rd birthday videos. First, the video depicting me opening my presents and cards on the 5th of November. And then the footage depicting the party itself on the 4th of November. I finished uploading the party video just at the end of that Vikings Commanders game, where the Vikings won 20-17. Although when I uploaded the 23rd birthday party video, I got a copyright claim, which I knew would happen and is preferable to getting a copyright strike. I only ever got one copyright strike outright, thankfully. It's long since expired, and I would like to get that video back up someday by having the copyright owner retract the claim and then just manually claim the music. And the Content ID system only detected the Happy Happy Birthday song by the Arrogant Worms, which played at the very end of the video. They didn't detect my singing of Black Sun by Def Cab for Cutie or Yellow by Coldplay. I've seen remixes of both of those songs on YouTube, so hopefully, worst case scenario, if the owners of those songs find the video, I just get a manual claim, since that's something that copyright owners can do. I never intend to infringe copyright, but since it was essentially an instrumental of those songs and I was singing the exact lyrics, I thought the Content ID system would detect it. I finished the second jack-o'-lantern polystyrene cup drawing at around 9:45 p.m. And during the process, I noticed that polystyrene cups have a tendency where if you press your fingers or palm of your hand against it to support while you're either drawing or coloring in another area, you can actually have the paint or marker bleed onto your fingers and hand, and actually resulting in the marker being faded. Which isn't something that happens. The paint doesn't end up faded on polystyrene blocks and balls. This is how much marker is still left after washing my hands with soap and warm water at least twice. As such, as I traced over the ultrafine orange grooves with an ultrafine red Sharpie marker, and then colored in the sections between the grooves with a fine-tipped orange Sharpie marker, I had to keep coloring over the faded areas with that same orange fine-tipped Sharpie marker. Yeah, I barely dipped into the new Ultimate Collection. I only did so to get a fine-tipped black Sharpie marker, and that's just because black is the darkest color, and as such, it's the most resistant to fading. I did that for the timestamp, and was concerned that if I used any other color, it would be more susceptible to eventually fading, that sort of thing. As such, I had to put in several hours of work today in order to finish that second jack-o'-lantern polystyrene cup drawing, but ultimately I did manage it. I worked on it both before and after our trip to Brody's at the Bay, and then Core Life today. I also recall uploading the November 5 My Dinner video within the hour before we left for Brody's at the Bay. There were points in which I wasn't sure if I wanted to go or not, but I ultimately decided to do so to spend some time with my dad, and I figured that it would be fine because I could always finish. I figured I could finish the second polystyrene jack-o'-lantern polystyrene cup drawing when I got back, and I ultimately did, although I ended up kind of staining the counter. And there's also coffee rings, which will need to be scrubbed up tomorrow.